everybody, and welcome to one of our Spiritualism Lyceum evenings. These are the evenings where we talk about all things appertaining to spiritualism. We have an absolutely wonderful guest for you. I know I say this most weeks, but you know what? Each of our guests just amaze me in so many different ways. We've got a lovely lady tonight, Miss Karen Wood. Karen, good evening.
Good evening. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Karen, I have had the pleasure of viewing online earlier on one of, you do your own, what is it?
I do, it's called Kitchen Table Philosophy. And it came about because people seem to think that philosophy has to be very highbrow and academic. And I just want to change that. So a lot of philosophy that I've learned over the years came around sitting around my own kitchen table as a child, as a young woman, listening to the wisdom of my grandmother, my mum and dad, and other people. And I think we can learn so much from our elders and all the wise things that they did. And that's what I want, up and coming mediums, students of mine, to understand that philosophy is for everybody and it's about your life. So that's why I wanted to bring that to Facebook Live, really.
Yes, and very successfully, and so true.
Yes.
Part of the energies of this time that we are still going through and will continue to is a lot of recognition being given back to ancestry. Now, whether that being right back in the lineage or even recent ancestry, because we had, hadn't we? We've become a bit dulled to life, I would say.
Well, I can remember, listening to the stories that my mum and dad used to talk about the war days and how they got through those tough times. My father was fought in the war. He was in the Royal Navy and he was on destroyers and he was also in submarines. And my mother was working and she also drove ambulances at night. And she used to tell, and I used to say, so what was it like living in those times and how did you cope? And she said, well, it was, and she referred to it as like the best of times and the worst of times, because she said the camaraderie and everything at that time was fantastic. But, you didn't know whether you were going to last a day, a week or an hour. It was very hard. And then we used to watch films together and talk about films. And I've always been a bit of a telly buff. And when you see these programs on the telly where families, a scenario happens within a family and they go down a bit of a wrong path and they don't know what they're doing. And then they sit round the table with a family member or a good close friend and they listen to those words of wisdom. And those words of wisdom can also change their life. And when you think about it, Laurie, when people walk into a church for the first time, they're either bereaved, they're either searching for answers, or they're just curious, they're just nosy, and they don't really know why they found themselves in the church. And yes, they understand that there's mediumship, there's divine service, and it is a religion. But a lot of people just want answers, or they are on the cusp of something. And sometimes it's good to sit down and talk and listen to what people are saying and listen to what where they are in their lives, and also give the words of wisdom from your own experience. And it's not telling a person what to do, because we can't do that, because everybody has personal responsibility to make up their own mind. But you can actually just be there for people and share the different experiences. And sometimes that can be a little bit of an unburdening time for people when they come into the church as well.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And quite often, people will come up after a service and say, do you know what? I came with something on my mind today, and in the address,
yes,
that was answered. Yeah, and I love that. I absolutely adore that when that happens. But this communication, I mean, this is the actual ethos of spiritualism when you think about it in this respect. it is all about communication to
Yeah.
bring about healing, to bring about a relief from suffering, to bring about a release from misunderstandings. But it is all based on that communication
Yes.
effort. Very much so.
You find that people want to communicate with the spirit world, which is wonderful. You know, I love what I do as a medium. I love communicating and bringing forth that love from the spirit world. But you often find that people are not communicating with the people that they're actually the living, you know. And as you said, you know, spiritualism is about communicating, and it's about understanding yourself as well. And also you learn to look at yourself and actually acknowledge that we have the divine spark of God within us. That spirit is connected to God. And it's a wonderful feeling when someone comes up to you at the end of the service. And I like, you know, it's lovely to say when somebody says, oh, thank you for my message, or, you know, I really enjoyed that. But I actually love it when somebody comes up and says, thank you for the address. Thank you for those words, because it really touched me, you know. Because the address and the reading and the music, I can't forget the music here, because the music is so important in a service. You know, it can uplift the room. And there could be people that come to a church, you don't know what's going on in their private lives. They could be, but that whatever the, you know, the music's played, it could be their favorite song that makes them think about their mum or dad that's just passed to the spirit world. They might not get a message that night, but they're in that energy of love that comes from spirit as well when you're in a service. And I think that's important too.
Hugely. During the third lockdown, we were doing Zoom divine services on a Sunday morning. And I was very grateful that I had a couple who were assisting me, and I would create the music playlist on YouTube.
Yeah.
So they would share the music, because I know your experience with Zoom, when you try to share things, sometimes it just gets a bit complicated.
Yes.
And you forget you're on camera, so all people can see is you going.
No, I know.
So I was hugely grateful this couple stepped forward. And after a few weeks, they went, do you know, all your music is going with the address? And I went, yeah, I have noticed that. And I said, I'm not questioning it. I'm just going along with it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful when that synchronicity happens and everything sort of like ties in. And that's when you know that spirit are sort of, you know, have a little part to play there too, which I think is wonderful.
Indeed. And from the evidential side of it, we obviously, everybody is very well aware of the evidential medium, whose job it is to prove the continuation of life with evidence of people who are no longer on this plane of existence. But that mediumship goes through so many different levels. You know, it's just the right person is there at the right time. The right word is found to say, the right music. You know, somebody will come up afterwards, do you know what? It's my mum's anniversary today, and that was her favorite hymn.
Yeah.
And that's the message.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that I've not stood up there and gone, right, so-and-so, you know, it's your mum's anniversary, and in honor, I've been inspired to do that. You just let it flow. And when you let it flow like that, it's so much more touching. It's so
absolutely
much more.
Yeah. I think in, you know, to walk into a church and have a wonderful welcome and to feel part of something, you know, part of a community, somewhere to go and just sit and not have to worry about what's going on at home or what's going on tomorrow when you go at work. When I used to go to my church, it used to be my hour and a half of just being me. I used to walk out my house, go to church and just sit and just, you know, listen to the music, listen to the prayers and the address and the reading. And it was just my time. There was nobody bothering me. And of course, when I first went to church in the early 90s, we didn't have all the technology now with the phones beeping every 5 minutes or having to remember to switch them off. I could just go into the church and just enjoy enjoy that time. And I always used to like to get there early because they always used to play some really sort of nice tranquil music for everybody to get settled, and then we would have the music for the hymn. But it was, I think it's important that the churches are there to help people, especially with what's going on at the moment, with everything that we've just been through and are still going through, whether they be online or whether they be in person. Because
Indeed.
I think the online services have been absolutely amazing,
Yes. We've had some. One of the things I'd love to do is experiment, and this time has been, with all due respect to the severity and the seriousness of it, in other aspects, I've been going, oh, wow, what can we do? What can we do? And this branching out online has just been a huge experiment, which is working so well. I've gone from having mediums locally on a platform like this to one Zoom service. We had a speaker from Ireland, a speaker from Scotland, a speaker from Denmark, a speaker from the UK, a speaker from Menorca, and a speaker from Australia, who combined to make the service. And I'm just like, wow, oh my goodness. And it works so beautifully.
It's amazing because, and they all bring their unique way of doing things, and how they work is probably very different, which is absolutely amazing. But all those nationalities working together for the love of spirit, doesn't that show us something in the world? Everybody standing there from all those different countries, united in their love of spiritualism.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of a wow factor for me, I have to say. I think that's really great. And I've met some amazing people online. I've worked in different places that I would never have worked in, Australia, America, Scotland, Wales, all these places whereby I wouldn't have been able to travel from the southeast where I live. So it's that in itself has been brilliant. I've met some great people. My circles and everything are now online, and I teach online, which I never thought I would actually do, but again, I love it. So it's sort of broadens your whole horizon, which is quite amazing, really.
Yes, truly. You said something there, and very much on my energy of late, about when you went to the church, about being you.
Yes.
And yes, that is something that's been very much in my mind, because there's hundreds of versions of us out there in the world. We're mum, dad, sister, brother, father, husband, whatever. So each of these people see us in that role or that role or that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it's only when I come into a spiritual church or a center or speak with spiritual people that I can be me.
Yes.
I'm not something to somebody else. I'm me talking to another person who is also being me. And that is so invigorating.
Oh, it is, and I think it's brought me out, if that makes sense. I've become the person that I was meant to be, because we all try sometimes to be something for another person. We try to be the best daughter or son to our parents. We don't want to let our parents down, and we come from that generation where doing things the right way and it is very important. And my parents were great; they really were. And my mum she saw me. She used to come to church with me, and she saw me start my mediumistic journey, and she was really encouraging. And my dad too, but my dad passed before I actually started to work on the platform. But when you actually sit in the church and people want to talk to you, it doesn't matter, who you're married to, where you live. They're just interested in you. And my mum always used to say this thing. She'd say, now, what hat shall I put on today? Shall I put on my work hat, my cleaning hat? Yeah. And I think we tend to put on different hats for the situations that we're in. When I used to work in London for a big corporate organization, and I never used to share that I used to go to a spiritualist church. It wouldn't have really been looked, they wouldn't have understood it, some of them. It was all very very business, cut and thrust. And there was a couple of people I shared it with, some colleagues. So, but when I used to come home from a tough day working, over the years, I got involved with healing, and then I got involved on the committee. So I started to be quite a big part of the church. And it was a way I used to sort of just relax and unwind. And I used to take my corporate hat off and put my committee hat on and be Karen, and just be me. And I never minded what I did. I used to either, make the tea, sweep the floor, sort the music out, do the raffle tickets if there was a raffle on. I didn't mind. I just wanted to be part of that church. And it was so different to the other life that I lived. And gradually over the years, everything has sort of like been moved out the way. And this is my life now. And it's very it is my life, and I stand up, and I'm very proud to say that I'm a spiritualist, and I love my religion, and I love what I do. And it's amazing how you evolve, after you walk through those doors, how you change.
So true, because I think one of the things that a lot of people have taken from the lockdowns is actually discovering about themselves.
Yes.
Because we've lived this life of rushing here, there, doing, I'm this, I'm that, I'm there, I'm whoever. And actually we were enforced into this time of, no, you're not. You're you.
Yeah.
You're you, and you're laid bare at the moment to all the emotions under the sun. How are you going to deal with it? It's very, very hard, tough times. I do not denigrate that whatsoever. But what a time of growth as well, with a lot of people, that they have actually gone, yeah, actually, I am a person. And actually, no, I don't agree with this, or I do agree with this. It's been very interesting. Got a question here from Libby Bellhouse. Do you feel that more time could be given to healing, reading, address, content of services? Carry on. Sorry.
Well, lovely question, Libby. And I have to say, I would love all churches to just dedicate one service a month just to that. And in fact, I do know there is one church in London called the London Spiritual Mission, which is in Pembridge Place, which is a beautiful church. It's an independent spiritualist church run by some lovely people. And in fact, Gordon Smith is the president, and the vice president is an absolutely lovely lady. And they do once a month, they call it their devotional service, and they have music, they have a reading, and they have time for reflection and healing, and then the medium gives the address. And all through lockdown, I mean, they're open now, but all through lockdown, they ran their services that way. They just had the music, the reading, and the address. They didn't have any mediumship on their online services. And I have to say, it was so beautiful. And I was invited on more than one occasion to speak at those services. And I really used to enjoy serving that church, and also going along when I wasn't working myself, and just sitting in the congregation and enjoying the philosophy and the healing, because there was a lot of healing that happened. And I think that, I wish there was more churches that would take the plunge and do it. But you see, I think Minister Jackie Wright, I was listening to her talk a few months back, and she said mediumship is the hook that brings people into the church. And she's right. But once you're in the church, then you've had your message and you've had your proof of survival, then people want something more. They're looking for something more. It's like that spirit needs feeding. It needs to know, it needs to inquire. And I think then that's when maybe something else could be looked at there. Maybe a discussion group or something like that to keep, to keep things fresh, to talk about current things with a spiritual twist. I think there's lots of things that the churches could do, but instead of just, there's nothing wrong with the format, and I'm not having a go at churches when I say that. I've been part of running a church and it's not easy, but I think with what's happened, I think we have got to look at maybe giving thought and some time to the address and the philosophy and the healing, because it is an important part of spiritualism, and it's an important part of the spirit, the spiritualist movement. And I think that sometimes it gets put to the back burner a little bit, and the mediumship takes front stage. But I think it's got to come to the fore, really. That's what I think. So I don't know what you think, Laurie.
I'm just sat here. Before we went on air, we were talking about the synchronicity of things. And I just sat there giggling, because I am not blowing my own trumpet here or dropping in an advert for Paul Church. During the lockdowns, obviously part of the safeguards that we could introduce was to reduce the service time. And obviously without singing, that was a natural attrition of the time taken by a service. So we just did reading an address, healing, and evidential mediumship. But I was not placing any time limits on anybody. And we've had mediums given an address lasting 35 minutes. 35 minutes out of an hour service is a long time.
Yes.
Do you know what? Nobody complained. People loved it. And from that has sprang that at Poole we are doing at the moment one service a month, which will shortly go to 2 on a Wednesday, replacing the traditional service with healing only, where we've been inviting in healers of different ways and practices to talk about what they do a guided meditation, and then we have healing available in the church. One of our services on a Sunday now is converted to a Lyceum service. So instead of the reading and address, there will be a segment there about the history of spiritualism.
Brilliant.
And the mediums are loving that, going, oh, yeah, because there's something new. One service a month is no mediumship at all, and that's called Family Gathering. And that is not a church service, but we bring in those elements, but in a much more family-orientated fashion. I love it because I get to wear jeans. I don't have to put a shirt on that day. That's wonderful. But yeah,
during my my training, I met 2 lovely guys called Brian Robertson and Simon James, and they run a church in Canada called the Open Door, and they're also part of the Inner Quest Foundation. And I've done some of my training with them, and they set up their service is mainly about philosophy and healing. So they do 20-20-20. So basically they start and they have the healers at the front of the church, and everybody goes up and has their healing. Then there's philosophy, and then last but not by no means least, there's a couple of messages at the end. But they focus more during their Sunday service on the philosophy and the healing. And they and during when it's Hydesville Day and some other times, they actually live stream their service online. And it was wonderful, because this is before lockdown or anything like that. And I'd come back from a service, and because of the time difference, I then put it on, and I was looking through Facebook, and I saw it, and I clicked on it, and I thought, how wonderful, I can watch, this lovely service going on in Canada while I'm sitting at my home in East Sussex. And it was absolutely amazing. And I sent them a message, and I said, it was so nice. I came back from my own serving a church to come and be part of your service, and it was really, really lovely. So it is happening. I think it just takes a little bit of time to change things, but I think it's definitely needed. I really do.
Yeah,
really do. And it's lovely that you're doing that in Poole. It really is. It really is.
Simon and Brian have been really wonderful supporters of these evenings as well, and it was just so encouraging that I was having these thoughts going around in my head, and and we all do it. You know yourself, running a church, you're thinking, I can't do that. I'll never get away with that. There'll be rioting. Talking to the both of them, and they were saying these things, and I'm going, this is wonderful. This is wonderful.
They are great guys. I think they're fabulous, and I've known them for many years, and I've been out to Canada and worked with them, and also have met them at the college as well, at the Arthur Findlay College.
Wonderful.
So I've got a lot of time for them too. They're great,
Yeah, ditto.
Lovely.
From France, lovely Sherry Ann. We've got a lot on tonight,
yes,
young lady.
How nice. How lovely.
I see Joy Sager's in from Florida. How wonderful. Anyway, enough of that. Sherry Ann is saying here, I had to go to church at least 6 weeks before I got a message, and that was 40 years ago, and I'm still here. My mate got a message first visit and never returned. Well, I suppose it depends on the message.
Well, do you know what, Sherry Ann, that happened to me. I went to church because I went with my friend and her mum, who's also my friend, and they sort of dragged me along because they said, "Oh, come on, you'll enjoy it." So off we trotted, and my friend Eve, she'd started going to the church, and she'd started being a trainee healer, and she said, "Oh, you'll really enjoy it." And I went weeks. I think it was probably a good, never mind 6 weeks, I think it was 6 months before I got my first message. And so much so that my friend said to me, she said, is any of your family dead? Have you got anybody in the spirit world? Because I sat in a row of the church and everybody got a message apart from me. But when I got that message, I didn't expect it. By this time, I was getting a little bit more involved in the church, and I was sitting at the back sorting out the raffle tickets, and it was a demonstration of mediumship night. And the message was so accurate, my head shot up, and I was like, oh my God. And I got all the goosebump feelings and everything. It was lovely. And I can remember that message nearly word for word today. And it was so meaningful, not just for me, but also for my mum, because my mum was at home and she was going to come with me, but she didn't really feel up to it. So she stayed, but I had to go because I was helping. So I went along. And when I came back with my bit of paper with the message written down, and I told her what was said, and then she read it, my mum cried. She was so overwhelmed with it. And she kept that message for a long time. She kept it in her handbag, and it meant the world to her because it was my granddad, who I didn't know. But the evidence was so spot on with what the medium gave. It will always be one of those messages that just means the world. So it doesn't matter. Some people go and get messages straight away. Some people don't. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. There's little rhyme or reason, but there's a comment here from the lovely Jennifer saying it took 12 years for my mum to come through, but only 2 weeks for my mum-in-law. I find that quite interesting because one of the common questions asked is people who come to the church attend fairly regularly, and they want to hear from somebody specific, and they don't come through. What's your thoughts on the possibilities around that energy?
It's an interesting one. Myself, I wanted my nan to come through because me and my nan were so close, and she had an understanding of spiritualism. So I thought that she would jump at the chance as soon as I walked into a church, and she didn't. It was my granddad that came through, who I never knew. I don't know why. I do think that there's many people. I always think that the people that need to come through to help you in that situation come through. And this is just my take on it. And I gave a reading to a lady many years ago, and I gave her this reading, and she said at the end of it, she said, "Oh my God," she said, "I never expected that person to come through." She said that was I had not thought of him in years. It was an ex-boyfriend of hers. She said, "But do you know what? It's given me closure, because I always wondered what had happened, and what had happened to him and how he passed, because nobody ever told me." So it was a little bit of closure for her. And also you've got to think of the spirit world as well. What's going on with them in the spirit world. It may be, if you've got somebody that maybe they've got things to do in the spirit world, maybe they're allowing other people to come through. I don't know really why certain people do, but I just think that linking with the spirit world and receiving a message from them, isn't that the wow factor itself?
Yeah.
Just realizing that we can link with an incarnate spirit and they can still talk to us. Are we not maybe getting a little bit too, well, I didn't want to hear from them, I wanted to hear from Auntie Mary, not Uncle George.
Yeah.
Isn't it just wonderful that somebody is connecting with us that is supposed to be dead? That's what we've got to focus on. I think we're getting a little bit too picky. The spirit world come because they want to, and I think we just have to be grateful for that. That love is still there. That's what we have to be grateful for.
Very true. I think one of the common stumbling blocks is people's own expectations of what's going to happen, whereas nothing is guaranteed. I have thoughts on Jennifer's comment there. I found in some cases that actually our grieving process and spirits acclimatization process, it's not a set time. We can't say to people on earth, right, you've got for the next 4 weeks you're allowed to mourn, and then after that you've got to give it up and return to normal. It takes a long time to work through all the different aspects of mourning, as does it with spirit. Spirit to me are not going to suddenly appear in spirit and be hands-on with everything and know how to communicate and know what to do. They're going to take their own process. You imagine waking up in spirit world, no matter how much you've dealt with spiritualism in your life, it's still going to be quite oh, okay, I am here, right? What do I do? I think sometimes that when we have a long gap waiting for a message for somebody, is because there's parts within us that we still haven't quite worked through. We still not released. Yes. We're still not made our peace with it. So this is a true story, and no disrespect. I had a lady saying, I've been waiting for my mum to come through for 8 years. And I said, well, it could be this. I said, there's no definitive answer. But I want her to come through and tell me that she's sorry for all that she did. And I'm thinking, well, I think we might just found out my mum's not coming through then. Because,
yes.
Oh, dear. Oh, sorry. Somebody wants me. Bye.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? It was interesting. I was watching the news I don't watch the news very often, but there was because as we all know, Prince Philip passed to spirit, and obviously the Queen and him were married for 70 odd years, and that's such a long time to be with somebody. And there was a picture of the Queen, and she was doing a Zoom meeting or something. She was online, or they said, today the Queen is back at work after having her official 2 weeks of mourning. And I'm thinking, I had to smile, because I was thinking, bless her heart, the official 2 weeks of mourning. She's going to be mourning for more than 2 weeks, but because she always puts duty first, she's getting on with the things that she has to do. But that grieving process will probably be with her for the rest of her life, because everybody's unique in their grief, and it takes people a long time to get over things and to learn to live without that person in your life. But it just did make me smile when you said, a grieving process takes time. When they said it on the news, the official grieving of 2 weeks, and now she's back at work, bless her heart. I just thought, you've got no idea.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? People can take a pop at all different people, be it monarchy, politicians, or whatever,
Yeah.
but we're not actually walking in their shoes. So maybe we should just remember that before this engages. Says Lawrence, saying that to himself, you do understand. Anyway, moving on rapidly. Lovely Sue Townsend. I had an acceptance of life after death as my normal. It took my friend Ellen to tell me how much comfort a message brought, and that realization humbled me so much to this day. Yes, I get what you're saying there. I think, Sue, you're saying there that you were quite at home and quite settled in the continuation of life. And then your friends obviously had this epiphany message that has just sort of like lit up the skies for her and just brought that healing through so much. It's good for us to touch base on that, because we do it with all walks of life, don't we? We don't take things for granted. We just don't acknowledge things so much as maybe we ought to. You touched on it there, that proof of life after death. How amazing is that? People go out of the service and think, oh, yeah, I didn't think much tonight. Hang on. In that service, at one point, there was that hard, cinching evidence of the continuation of life. I'm sorry, what do you want? Really, what do
I
you want?
know. I have this when I chair a meeting sometimes, which I quite have done on more than one occasion. I always and sometimes I say this when I'm working on as a medium. I say, ladies and gentlemen, never mind the X factor on the telly tonight. We are now having the wow factor, because the spirit world are here. And I think we do forget that sometimes. And some people deal with grief and death in a completely different way to another. And everybody is different and everybody is unique in that process. And if someone appears okay with it, and just carries on normally, some people will be heartbroken about, and we'll go through it in a different way. But everybody has to deal with that in their own way, and I think that a lot of people won't need questions answering. Some people need a lot of comfort, and I think when I have people come to see me for readings, some of them are in the early stages of grief. Some people have lost their partner a long time ago. And I think it depends on where you are in that part of your journey, if you like. I don't like using that word too much, but on the different stage. And yes, we do have an acceptance of life after death, but we still have that pain. We still miss that person, that physicality of that person. Someone said to me once, well, you're a spiritualist, so if someone dies, you don't get upset. And I went, well, of course we still get upset. We still miss that person. Yeah, but that they've gone to the spirit world and they're still living. I said, yes, but I'm not going to see them every day in the same way that I did when they were here. I said, and I still miss picking up the phone or going to visit them. And so it was interesting how people perceive the way we are as spiritualists, I think, as well.
So true. So true. A personal experience of my own at my father's funeral. I know it was probably done with the best intentions. However, to say to the son who is mourning his father at his father's funeral, I don't know what you're upset about. He's in a better place. Well, we nearly had 2 funerals that day.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
I was just like, what?
Yeah.
But it's because it does bring in to spiritualism. People talk about spiritualism as in it's all involving the dead.
Yes.
But actually, spiritualism is about life.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And
It's
that's
about
the message
now.
that gets missed.
Yeah. It's about how we live, how we progress, what we think, how we another passion of mine, Laurie, is what examples we set for our children as well.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people talk about the Lyceum movement of teaching the youngsters that spiritualism used to have in some churches years ago. And the question came up in one of my kitchen table philosophies. And I said, well, if we teach our children to show compassion, be kind, show respect, these are all the things that, you know, are part of sort of everyday life. And my son has watched me become a medium and be involved in spiritualism. And he says that spiritualism to him is like looking through the shop window. And I've always allowed him to make up his own mind whether he wants to be involved or he doesn't. And he believes in the afterlife, but he walks his own path, and that's fine. He's a grown up now anyway. But he always understood from a young age about personal responsibility and doing the right thing and being courteous and kind. And I think that is also some of the foundations that spiritualism has. Personal responsibility, uniting within the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God, and understanding about God as well. You know, God, sometimes people say, I don't want to know about God, or I don't want to talk about God. Well, to me, God is everywhere. God is in every living thing that we see, that we touch, you know. Yesterday I had a lovely day at the beach, and I just sat on the beach, and it was just so nice to just see the sea, watch different people as they go about their business, and just connect to all the wonderful things that we have. And so, you know, God is in the trees, in the wind, even in the rain, and we need the rain as well, because we have to keep our plants watered and everything like that. So God is all around, and in everything that we do, and also with everything that we sort of put together with regards to our services, I believe, as well, and talks and discussions.
Yeah. Hugely, absolutely hugely. Excuse me, there's just sadly somebody trying to cash in on tonight. They will not be doing it anymore. Very true, because I run a church, and very much part of the debate where people say, oh, I don't like church because it smacks of orthodoxy. Or if you talk about God, it's sort of like, oh, no, I can't go along with that theory. And it is very much an always present part and energy, whether it's a church or a centre. And if we just take the word God, you know, if you say God to somebody, a lot of people with their preconceptions and going back into their own ancient history of somebody sat on a throne telling you what to do, and I can't accept that. Here, I do always say to people, it's the God of your own understanding.
Yes.
You know, and I will say to people, listen, if you think the universe is run by a giant tree frog, that's absolutely great. Because the most important thing is that you believe in something. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said about the God of your understanding, because I came across that by my friend Adaraya from Canada. And when she brings everybody into prayer, she's got a beautiful, lovely Canadian accent, and she brings everybody into prayer, and she says, let us join together with the God of your understanding. And I think that's a lovely way of bringing people together, because there will be people that sometimes come to online services or to spiritualist churches, and they may come with a different background, with a different way of looking at God, you know. And as I said to you before we started, all paths lead to God. It doesn't matter where you come from, whether you come from a Christian background, Catholic, Buddhist, Muslim, a Hindu, whatever. There is just that power, that infinite power, that strength, that love that comes from God, the God of your understanding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And excuse me. I've had healing today. It's not done me any good, has it?
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Yeah,
I
I'm
need to
sure it is.
dislodge something.
Oh, great. I'm at that age, everything's dislodging itself.
I know what you mean. Oh dear. I don't know. I don't know.
Getting back to spiritualism and getting off my humour wagon, I do apologise, everybody.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's good to it's good to laugh. It's good to express yourself through laughter, and I think it's important that people do that. And you know, the spirit world. It's not all. It's lovely to be reverent and lovely to have that, especially in a divine service. You know, have that reverence that we're in church and that we are coming together. But I also think it's good to have that humour, that upliftment, because sometimes people need that, especially if they're going through tough times. You know, sometimes it's good to laugh. I used to work. I've done a few jobs in my time, and one job I worked in a shop. I was behind the counter, and I wasn't very good at stacking the shelves. But my manager used to put me on the till, and I used to have to put stock all the cigarettes and all the drink. Not that I smoke or drink that much, but that was part of my job. And we used to have some people that used to come in, and sometimes I would be the only person that they saw. And they'd stop and they'd want a little conversation as I'm packing their shopping and taking their money. And like one week they'd say, oh, I've got the grandchildren coming, because there was like umpteen bars of chocolate and crisps. So you knew that the grandchildren were coming. And then the next week they'd come in, I said, and then it would just be a normal shop. And I said, did you have a good time with the grandchildren? You know, did they eat you out of house and home like you thought they would? Oh yes, she said, we had a great time. So that would be, and then they'd come in, and then it would be all the chocolate and the sweets. All the grandchildren are coming, and you build up this little connection and this banter. And in a way, I wasn't working with my mediumistic head on or doing anything like that, but I was giving people time. I was listening, and also sending them a healing thought if I felt that they needed it. So I didn't have that hat on, but you sometimes can't help yourself, because you just know there's a need there. They need a little bit they need more attention from you. They need a smile. They need something else. And I think that once you start the holistic work that that mediumship brings, it's not just about working on the platform. It's not about coming on to Zoom rooms or anything like that. It's your whole life. It's who you are. And you don't have to be a medium to do that. You can, I think when you walk into a spiritualist church, follow the spiritualist path, I think it changes you, and you start to use that intuition that we all have, and to blend, to try and understand what's going on with people, and you know, not to make it all about you, but to see if somebody else needs a smile or a little bit of help. I think that's important as well. Hugely. And I think that's what you know, churches do. They can give that support. They can be there for people, not just the Sunday service, but also for other things as well. We used to run quite a lot of social activities. We did quiz nights, beetle drives, social get-togethers, like, you know, dancing and things like that. This is years ago when I first started, you know, being part of the church, and they used to be such great fun, you know. And I think it's all about the connection that we have with each other, shared by the love of spiritualism, of that faith as well.
Definitely. I ascribe very strongly to bringing them back in the conversation, Simon and Brian. They have this philosophy about everyday mediumship.
That's it.
And it's mediumship that doesn't need acknowledgement. It's mediumship that doesn't, you know, you're not going to walk up to somebody and go, oh, I'm sensing you're so-and-so, so-and-so. Is that right? Yes. It doesn't require that. Your mediumship is that you're getting that inspiration of, like you say, oh, a bit of a healing thought there. That is mediumship. You know, I think we do need to start recognizing the different levels of mediumship. at the moment, say mediumship. Oh, right, yeah, I've got your mother here, and that's it. It's just that one level, but it's not. It's on so many finer levels. Picking up I haven't heard from so and so for a while. I'll pick her up and see if she's all right. Oh, and unfolds the conversation that they needed to hear from you.
Yeah,
that's mediumship. That is mediumship.
it is. And also, when you're going back to Simon and Brian, they do a lot of community stuff. I follow what they do on Facebook, and they do community walks. There's a group of them that go out for the walks, and they put these beautiful pictures up. The flowers that they do in the church are just amazing. They've got this community garden, and I think they're growing their own veg and all things like that. So people that are retired, that still want to be active, that still want to do something and have something to give to society, can. And the opportunity is within the church. I mean, if you think about going back years ago, any church, there was always people that made cakes for the bring and buy. There was always people that would knit for raffles and make things. There was always craft things, jumble sales, all these things. And we've sort of forgotten about all those sorts of things, I think, because everybody is leading very busy lives and, hasn't got the time. But in Canada, it seems to be, from my understanding, a little bit of a slower pace of life. And they actually put the time. And if any of you, are out there, and go on, find the Open Door Sanctuary, because it is quite an experience to see what they do. And they are lovely, lovely people. They really are. All the people that are connected to the church, they're quite amazing, really. So it is about what you give to society and how you live your life, and what you want to do, and how you look at things. It makes you look at things in a completely different way, and it changes you.
And lovely Fiona has just taken the words out of my mouth. Exactly what I was thinking. It is this community aspect within our churches and centres that we really need to foster more, bringing people together and making something. Here at Paul, we've got a very small committee. So when we need things done, we involve everybody in the church.
Yeah.
And if you're able to do it, please do. We don't I'm not saying this is every church and centre, but it is out there. If you're not on the committee, you can't even go and wipe up a teacup,
that's very true. Yeah.
Paul, it's like, if you've got 2 legs and 2 arms, get in here, I'll find you something to do.
Yeah.
Get that over at love. But again, that's brilliant, because people actually want to do something. They want to be a part of it. They may not want to be stuck on a committee and be tied down to meeting every month and doing whatever, but they're quite happy. I mean, here, I can't praise them enough. Our volunteers who, during this lockdown, were coming in when everybody's been told to stay at home unless you absolutely have to go out. They still came out to stand on the door, to greet people coming in, to take contact details, to ensure their church worked. How wonderful. And they, and I'm saying thank you to them so much. And they're saying, no, thank you, because it gave us purpose. It gave us something to focus on, to do, to be a part of. And that community element is so strong that when you bring that in, it's a power, a real power.
Yeah. I think you said the word purpose and to focus on. And I think that's what the lockdown, for me personally, and also people that I've spoken to, friends and family, people have found a different purpose. There's people actually thinking now about, I don't want to, they're working from home, so they don't have to go to London so much or to the office. People are thinking about slowing down and maybe looking at a simpler life. And I think that it does make you realize what's important. What's important to me. I think that between the first lockdown and the second lockdown, we were allowed to see each other out on the outside. And I met up with some friends in the park, and I was so excited. I was actually going to see people instead of on a screen. I was going to see people. And we sat in the park with our respective plastic cups of, paper cups of tea that we bought and flasks and what have you. And we sat on the grass and we laughed and we laughed. And it was just so nice to do that. And it's all the little things that we've been taken for granted. I'll just get on a plane. Oh, I'll just do this. I'll do that. It's just those little things. Even a hug,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, God, how much have we missed physical contact? I love hugging my friends and my family. I think it's so important. Now I'm just sending people lots of virtual hugs, which are nice, but not quite the same to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's about, thinking about what's important. And community is definitely important and so needed. There's a lot of lonely people out there that need to feel part of something. It's very important.
I agree 100%. Lovely question here from Jenny Hendon. Hello, I wonder what your thoughts are about the trend amongst many to take parts of different belief systems and follow those, but yet do not believe there is a God. Interesting.
Yes, it is an interesting question. Well, I think what happens, Jenny, and this is just my take on it, I think what happens is people, there's so much out there. People read, people dabble. And then they take all these bits that they agree with, and then they make it into what they feel is right. And if that's okay with them, that's fine. It's up to them. For me personally, I'm a spiritualist and I believe in God. And if anybody asks me, what my religion is and, what I do, and do you believe in God? Yes, I do. But we have to realize that not every person does for whatever reason. And that's up to them because we have free will and personal choice. Yeah. It's not what I believe in, but I respect other people's opinions and other people's beliefs. And I think that's all that we can do, really.
Indeed.
What do you think, Laurie?
No, I agree 100%. If you don't want to believe in a God, that's absolutely fine. Probably the most important thing is that he believes in you, but never mind.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if you don't, I love debate. I have an extreme aversion to diatribe, and normally you can work out which way a conversation's going within about 2 sentences.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to debate the existence of a God, absolutely fine. I will sit there and talk quite happily. Somebody wants to come in and says there is no God. Okay. And
when you think about it, when people say there is no God, well, it's I always remember I love movies, and I always remember the movie. Oh gosh, what's it called? But I can't think of it. The one where Richard Attenborough's Father Christmas, and they take Father Christmas to court. A Miracle on 34th Street, I think it's called.
That's the one, yeah.
And the lawyer that is representing Richard Attenborough comes up and pulls out the dollar bill or whatever, and on that dollar bill at the bottom it says, "In God we trust," and that's on the American money, the American dollar. Okay, and that's what he uses to get Father Christmas, Richard Attenborough off, and they win the case. And he says, "Yes, in God we trust, but can we see God? Where is God?" Well, to me, God is everywhere, and God is in everything that we do. But we have to trust, and we have to put our faith in that trust. But some people's faith wobbles a little bit. Sometimes they have it knocked because of certain things that happen in their lives, and that's hard, and that's hard, and sometimes people find it hard to get back into that, into believing in something again. But as you said, God won't forget you, and sometimes God will bring people into your life to help you. You sometimes remember where do these people come from. And I'm going to touch on what Simon James said in a talk I listened to at the beginning of lockdown. What people say, where is God? And he said, the NHS, the carers, the people that are serving us in the supermarkets and keeping food, keeping the supplies coming. They have God within them. They are trying to keep us going through this lockdown. That is where God is. And God is in people's hearts when they try to give a good turn and to try and help people. And I think that we have to remember that. But sometimes we, for whatever reason, we move away from God, but God doesn't move away from us.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. There we go, Jenny. Thank you for that. Karen, absolutely wonderful. I knew tonight would just happen. And sure enough, it has. Beautiful, beautiful evening. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Some wonderful comments. I will just pick up quickly on the thread here because it's quite in. This is tagging on with what I was talking about, the community aspect. And we've got a lovely lady out in Philadelphia who has been taking part in our online events such as this, watching our divine services streamed live online. And she's just prompted Jennifer.
Oh, that's nice.
And then Joan has agreed with that. And it just goes to show that community energy, even in this online environment.
Yeah.
Because I always have somebody from the church as a moderator online to keep an eye open for anybody posting anything dodgy, and to welcome people in. And I had underestimated how much that has grown, that people join together, they know each other. You see comments coming up now saying, "Oh, what happened with your daughter?" And I'm going, "How do they know about that?" Oh, I'll get on with it. Absolutely wonderful.
It's fascinating how all these wonderful friendships have happened and how people are connecting, and it's great, and long may it continue. Long may it continue. That's what I say.
Definitely. Well, we've had a wonderful evening on tonight. As I said, we've got Florida on. I see we've got Stockholm on, America on. And we could never have done this.
No.
We could never have done this. We've got France on. Oh, there's too many. They're all over the place. Bless them. Thank you, Karen. Beautiful.
My pleasure.
Beautiful.
My pleasure. Evening. I've loved it. I love evenings like this. They're right up my street. Wonderful.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Next Saturday, we have another Lyceum evening. At the moment, we have Mr. Bill Rich, who will be talking on developing mediumship. Bill is a little bit under the weather at the moment, so I may have to swap about. It depends on him. Fingers crossed he'll be up to it, but if not, there'll be something else on.
Well, my lovely friend Liz has been on. So hello, Liz. My lovely friend Liz. Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., our service, which is of the Divine Service format, will be streamed live on the Facebook page. And we have Suzette Carlisle Thorley taking that service. So have a wonderful evening, everybody. I believe there's some football match on tonight that a lot of people are probably wondering about.
That's all we've had on the telly, isn't it? Football.
Yes. So the lovely Sam Nurse at least popped in to say she won't be here because she's watching the football. So thank you, Sam. Everybody, have a beautiful evening, a beautiful night's rest. And when you wake up tomorrow, it's a whole new life starting all over again. Go out and embrace it. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.